President Trump announces new tariffs.
Tariff on copper, we're going to make it 50%.
50%.
Something that we have not seen for many, many years.
The idea is to bring copper home, which is key to the industrial sector.
Tariffed at a very, very high rate, like 200%. On August 1st and beyond.
Well, if you thought the trade wars were cooling down, think again. Just minutes ago, reports surfaced that President Trump is now demanding a minimum of 15 to 20% tariffs on all European Union goods. That's double what Europe was hoping for. And the EU's response? They're preparing the largest retaliation package in modern trade history. Markets are already in free fall. The Dow dropped over 250 points within hours of this news breaking. European stocks are bleeding red across the board. And with less than 2 weeks until Trump's August 1st deadline, we're watching the collapse of the world's largest trading relationship in real time. Hit subscribe to Wise Truth and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest economic crisis updates. Because what's happening right now isn't just about trade, it's about the complete breakdown of Western economic cooperation. Let's start with how we got here. For weeks, EU negotiators believed they were close to a deal similar to what the UK secured. A baseline 10% tariff with some sector exemptions. They even increased their offers to buy more American oil and gas to narrow that $231 billion trade deficit Trump keeps complaining about. But according to 3 sources briefed on the talks, Trump escalated his demands following what appeared to be productive negotiations. The European Commission had prepared compromise packages, arranged increased energy purchases, and even offered to open more agricultural markets to American farmers. Then came Friday's bombshell. Trump's team delivered an ultimatum, 15% minimum, 20% preferred across all EU goods. No exceptions for luxury items, no carve-outs for industrial equipment, no special treatment for allies. European Trade Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis called it economic hostage-taking. German Finance Minister Lars Klingbeil, speaking at the G20 meeting in South Africa, said Europe was prepared to take countermeasures if necessary. The language from Brussels has shifted from diplomatic cooperation to barely contained fury. Why the sudden escalation? Trump's team believes Europe has been freeloading on American security guarantees while maintaining what he calls unfair trade advantages. But European officials point out that when you include services and investments, trade is actually quite balanced. They're not wrong. America runs a massive surplus in services exports to Europe. The market reaction tells you everything about how serious this has become. Within 2 hours of the Financial Times report, European markets lost $127 billion in value. The Euro Stoxx 600 dropped 2.8% in a single day. German DAX fell 3.1%. French CAC 40 down 2.9%. But it's not just European pain. American companies with heavy European exposure got hammered. Apple, which sells $95 billion worth of products in Europe annually, dropped 4.2%. Microsoft fell 3.8%. Even Coca-Cola, which generates 23% of its revenue from Europe, lost 2.1%. Tesla's stock plummeted 6.7%. And here's why that's particularly brutal. Tesla's Berlin Gigafactory produces over 375,000 vehicles annually, primarily for European customers. If Trump slaps 20% tariffs on EU goods, Europe will absolutely retaliate against American cars. Tesla's European dream could become a nightmare overnight. The bond markets are screaming warnings too. German 10-year yields dropped 15 basis points as investors fled to safety. The dollar initially strengthened, but then gave back gains as traders realized this could trigger a global recession. Currency markets are in chaos. The euro fell to $1.67, its lowest level in 8 months. The British pound, despite having its own deal, dropped on fears of contagion. Even the Swiss franc and Japanese yen strengthened as investors sought safe havens. Europe isn't planning to roll over. They've been preparing for this moment since 2018, and their retaliation toolkit is both sophisticated and devastating. First, the immediate response: 25% tariffs on American bourbon, motorcycles, and agricultural products, hitting Trump's political base in Kentucky, Wisconsin, and Iowa. But that's just the appetizer. The main course involves targeting American tech giants. Europe has already shown it's willing to go after Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon with massive fines and regulatory restrictions. Under a trade war scenario, those digital services taxes could skyrocket from 3% to 15% overnight. Then there's the energy weapon. Europe is America's largest customer for liquefied natural gas exports, $30 billion annually. European officials are already in talks with Qatar, Australia, and Russia about alternative suppliers. If Trump wants to play hardball, we'll show him what energy security really means. But here's the nuclear option few are talking about: financial services restrictions. American banks generate $78 billion annually from European operations. Investment banks like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan Chase could face licensing restrictions, trading limitations, and capital requirements so onerous they'd essentially be forced out of European markets. The aviation sector represents another pressure point. Boeing's European orders represent 34% of its global backlog. If Europe retaliates by restricting Boeing aircraft purchases or maintenance certifications, American aerospace could face catastrophic losses. Let's talk about who gets hurt when this trade war explodes. American businesses are already panicking, and they should be. Take luxury goods, an area where America actually competes well globally. Companies like Coach, Michael Kors, and Ralph Lauren generate billions from European sales. Under 20% retaliatory tariffs, a $500 Coach handbag becomes $600 for European consumers. Guess what happens to sales? They collapse. American farmers are particularly vulnerable. The EU is the largest market for U.S. agricultural exports, $15.8 billion annually. Soybeans, corn, wheat, and beef could all face crushing retaliatory tariffs. Iowa corn farmers are already calling this 2018 all over again, but worse. The automotive sector faces a double hit. Not only would American car exports to Europe face retaliation, but European car parts imported to America would become 20% more expensive. This affects every American automaker, from Ford's European components to Tesla's German battery supplies. Technology companies face the most complex challenges: Microsoft's European cloud operations, Google's advertising revenue, Apple's supply chain relationships. All of these become weapons in a trade war. European data sovereignty laws could be weaponized to force American tech companies to completely restructure their operations. Small and medium businesses that have built European partnerships over decades watch helplessly as those relationships become economically unviable overnight. A small Connecticut manufacturer told, "We've been selling to Germany for 23 years. This would end our business." But the real horror show is what happens to global supply chains when the world's two largest economic blocs start economic warfare. Modern manufacturing depends on seamless integration across borders. A typical smartphone contains components from 12 different countries. German engineering software runs American factories. French luxury brands use Italian leather and American cotton. When you throw 20% tariffs into this delicate ecosystem, everything breaks. Companies can't simply reshoot their supply chains overnight. It takes years to build new partnerships, develop quality controls, and achieve cost efficiencies. The semiconductor industry illustrates this perfectly. American chips use European manufacturing equipment, which processes materials from Japan and South Korea, assembled in Taiwan and Singapore, then integrated into products sold globally. Add 20% tariffs at multiple points, and the entire system becomes economically unviable. Shipping companies are already reporting booking cancellations. Maersk, the world's largest container shipper, says transatlantic volume bookings dropped 18% just since Friday's announcement. That's billions of dollars in trade grinding to a halt. So where does this end? We're watching the potential collapse of 75 years of transatlantic economic cooperation. Trump's demand for 20% tariffs isn't just about trade balances. It's about fundamentally reshaping the global economic order. Europe has made it clear they won't capitulate. America's businesses are begging for sanity. Global markets are pricing an economic disaster, and ordinary consumers on both sides of the Atlantic will pay the price through higher costs, fewer choices, and economic uncertainty. The irony is devastating. Policies designed to strengthen America are instead isolating it, weakening its businesses, and handing competitive advantages to China, Southeast Asia, and other regions happy to fill the void left by transatlantic trade warfare. Will cooler heads prevail in the next 2 weeks? Can negotiators find a face-saving compromise? Or are we about to witness the most destructive trade war in modern history? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Europe will cave to Trump's demands, or is this heading for all-out economic warfare? And don't forget to subscribe to Wise Truth and hit that notification bell, because this story is far from over, and the next 2 weeks could reshape the global economy forever. The clock is ticking, the stakes couldn't be higher, and the economic shockwaves are just beginning.